Marathwada, a drought-prone region in Maharashtra, has long faced a severe water crisis due to erratic rainfall and limited infrastructure. Now, this scarcity deeply affects daily life and economic stability, hitting farmers the hardest. With the Maharashtra accounting for 38% of India's farmer suicides from 1995 to 2013, the Marathwada Water Grid project, led by Devendra Fadnavis, offers hope as a sustainable water distribution solution for the region. Now, to discuss this further, we are being joined by Rashmi Samant, political analyst and author from Mumbai. Thank you so much for joining us, Rashmi.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So, but without further ado, I'm straight off going to jump into the questions. Rashmi, what has been the tangible impact of Marathwada Water Grid project, which has been spearheaded by Devendra Fadnavis on the lives of farmers in the region? And also, could it become a model for other drought-prone areas in India?
Well, I think first of all, when you talk about farmer suicides, which I think is a problem that all of Bharat faces, different regions have faced due to a number of reasons, from debt to water scarcity, to natural disasters. So we've always seen farmers at the receiving end of financial inequity leading to suicide. And I think 38% is a very, it's a statistic. If you talk about it from a very realistic perspective, then between 2003 and 14, it's been 10 farmers every day committing suicide. It's been
Okay.
that acute, the
So
problem
you
in
are trying to
Marathwada.
tell us that probably the reported numbers are not up up to where the reality lies, right?
No, not really, but I think it puts in a pinpoint, right? When you talk about 10 farmers dying each day as
Yeah,
vis-a-vis 38%, I
yeah,
think it makes the problem more real, more tangible, that how problematic it is really. And you see political parties trying to leverage farmers as a vote base. But then all
absolutely.
they do ever is try to waive off loans and come up with short-term problems. They try to plug the problem in the short run by giving a short-term solution. But
Right.
end of the day, the farmers of this country, they want self-respect. They want to be able to earn their own bread, make their ends meet, and put in the hard work and get the work done. They don't want dole outs. So I think
Absolutely. And I
these
think
are
when we also look at farmers from other countries and how they are flourishing vis-a-vis a farmer in India, where once upon a time, I think they were the ones who were providing food for everybody, to the time when they're looking out for, as you called it, the dole outs, it's a stark difference.
absolutely. And I think this is great because before every election, you see political parties coming out with guarantees as to, okay, we will do this, we will do that. And, in the process, try to bankrupt the state treasury,
Yeah.
because these are all temporary dole outs which do not fix the economy in the long run. But, try to pacify the people of their immediate problems. You can't blame the people because people are an acute problem. And if the political parties only give such short plugged solutions, and other political parties try to compete in that space by competing on guarantees, then it's a bad economic model. The country will not flourish. So I think
Absolutely.
this is also very fundamental, crucial, and pretty pathbreaking in the way that for the very first time before an election, we have a party come forward, we have a leader come forward and say that, okay, this was a huge problem in my state. And instead
Yeah.
of course, he's done a lot of, short term things to fix the problem during his tenure. They did that water rail to Latur. They did all of
Right.
these things to, immediately fix the problem. But
Yeah.
also, here we have a leader who's done something to fix the problem permanently
Hmm.
and create a water grid. And I think this water grid is extremely futuristic in the way that it allows reverse flow of water depending on, where the which taluka has more water, and then there are these collection points every 10 kilometers. It is fundamentally answering problems because water systems were extremely primitive back in the day, of the few successive governments that we've had over the past,
Absolutely.
6 7 decades,
Absolutely.
where it's all
And I
about.
think also when India boasts of probably having the brightest of scientists across the world who are doing fantastic job across, again, internationally, but in India itself, we have not been able to use it to the, max.
Absolutely. And I think we also have a heritage of excellent water conservation. If you go
Yeah,
to cities like Udaipur, if you go to, these cities in Rajasthan, they're not
right.
naturally abundant with water, but all of these lakes were created to create civilizations around them. And, some of the forts, they're exceptional in the way that you don't know where the water comes from, but perennially there's water in these forts. So I think we have that history of great water conservation methods even in the driest, most arid of regions.
Yeah,
And Marathwada is successively better than these regions in Rajasthan. But the fact that we haven't been able to address this problem was a failure of successive political parties and successive governments who only chose to, treat the people of this country and the state of Maharashtra and the region of Marathwada as, few people, as a water group, not as people with livelihoods, people with a life, people with a future. So
yeah,
here you're fixing the problem for future, and I think it's the same, right? Any region will flourish if you give them the basic necessities, if you give them food, water, shelter, electricity, and
right.
then comes a step above. If you give them excellent education and healthcare, the region flourishes even more. So
Absolutely.
you,
So
you
it is
can
not
see
just
that.
fixing the problem, but it is also kind of preparing a space for them where they can grow from here on.
Absolutely, they can grow from here on. Their children can stop migrating out of this region, because Marathwada is also a region where you see massive immigration when it comes to the youth, because they don't see
Yeah,
a future for themselves there. So you ensure that there's continuity of that community in that region, preservation of culture, and the creation of perhaps another hub of economy in the entire state. So it's a long term goal, because the minute you fix basic infrastructure, the minute you fix basic necessities, it
yeah,
also creates space for the people to flourish in all aspects of their life. It also adds to general health of the
hmm,
region, life expectancy. We're talking about basic things, because we know that water causes some of the gravest of illnesses if
yeah.
it's if there's any lack of it, or if there's some sort of um,
Absolutely.
pollution
I
that
think your
gets in.
daily life, there is no way that you can lead a good, or you can have a good standard of living without a basic necessity as water.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And
Good.
I think with other states, you mentioned, can other states and other regions in Bharat take precedent and take, some inspiration from this?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I think currently, if you see, we have some regions reporting excessive rainfall, excessive water, that you have to open the floodgates at dams, and release the water into the ocean. We
Yeah.
have some regions where that's going on. Then we have regions which are acutely suffering from drought, and they have been successively having problems. So it's
Yeah.
a diverse country with diverse land makeup and diverse climatic conditions. So
Absolutely.
if we manage to build a grid where this exchange can happen of water, and there's no wastage, and we help the country grow in a way by making sure that the sharing of resources happens
Absolutely.
well, then I
Yeah.
mean we are in the future. We have reached the stage where we are number one economy. We're no
Absolutely.
longer at
And,
number
and
five.
if I can call it loosely, it'll probably be more of a bhaichara. I have a little more, please. You can have some. Use,
Yeah.
do not be deprived of the basics that you need. Okay. Another thing, Rashmi. Now, Fadnavis's leadership during 2016 water crisis in Latur. Now, with efforts like how you spoke about, like the water train, gained widespread attention. Now, how do you see his initiative, like this crisis management, and of course the water grid as well, reflecting his commitment to tackling Marathwada's long-standing water issues?
I think he's extremely sensitive to the people and their problems, and that he's delivered in the long run, instead of just waving loans and running water trains every time the problem gets worse, because that's something you can simply do, right? You can run a train from here to there every time the problem gets absolutely worse and take away the brownie points. But to
Absolutely.
build a grid at the back of it to simultaneously ensure that you're doing something in the short run and in the long run,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
speaks of a visionary leader who, whose heart truly bleeds for his people. It doesn't talk of any, a shallow leader who's only after power or only after, preserving his seat in the legislature.
Right.
Now, because the problem with such long term projects is that they are never really they never become election points, because people see these projects in the works for such a long time that it never hits as a voting point for people. Like, if you look at it from an electoral perspective, as a
Yeah, yeah,
political analyst, I feel like such big projects which go on for years altogether, which actually fix
absolutely.
problems, they never sort of become a voting point in vis-a-vis an immediate relief, like, okay, we're waiving your loans, or we're giving you a monthly dole out of so much, and so on. So
Right.
it takes a real leader to take such steps, knowing that the
And it
political.
might just not come back to you within your
Absolutely.
term. It might just go, and somebody else just might say, "Ki, oh, this has happened in our term," which
Art.
frequently does happen in a country like ours, especially when the
Absolutely.
elections are around the corner.
Absolutely. So when elections are around the corner, there's always sort of this grab for, the credit for all of these projects. And also, I think people really, right? We
Yeah.
haven't seen these long-term projects really turn into electoral advantage. In some cases, they do. In some cases, they don't. So it's always a coin toss in that way. And a project like this, I think the whole project is somewhere priced around 40,000 crores. And I think
Hmm.
the first phase is almost 10% of that amount. And, there's 60% contribution from the government, which is pretty huge, and 40% sort of private, investment through debt and equity. So it's a huge investment that's going in, even for a government to, put in that kind of resources into a place. So that shows that there is a long-term commitment to actual betterment of the people, and that uh, the former
Yeah.
chief minister and the current deputy chief minister, Devendra
Right.
Fadnavis, actually like bleeds for his heart bleeds for the people of Marathwada. And I think that is important. And I think as
Absolutely.
an electorate, as well, like not just in Maharashtra, but pan India, we need to look out
Hmm.
for leaders who would fix the problem rather than throw some money at it, or, come up with a band-aid to hide the problem.
Right.
All of these
I
short
don't know
term.
if I can use a simile. Probably we need leaders like mothers who are really interested in the growth of their child, rather than somebody
Yeah.
visiting who just comes in with gifts and then goes off and doesn't really look back to see what's happening with
Yes.
you.
You don't need cool aunties who come in and,
Yeah.
spoil the
Aunts
child
and
and go
uncles,
away.
more
You
uncles
know,
in this
more
case.
uncles. So
Yeah.
you need a mother. You need you need somebody who would nurture the, region like a parent, like discipline it when necessary, and look out for long-term development instead of, trying to sort the problem with a small chocolate, or, we don't need that band-aid fixing anymore. Of course,
True.
when the problem gets really bad, we need relief measures like the train that was run and all of these things. Of course, I do
Yes. Yes.
understand, when a new leader takes charge and he sees that farmers are actively dying,
Yeah.
it's okay to waive the loans, but also it is necessary to come up with a long-term problem to fix the
Solution like
problem
this.
solution,
Yeah.
instead of just waiving the loans year in and year out. And we've seen this happen for decades. I mean, waiving of loans is a solution that's been repeated for decades, for more than 6 decades.
Right.
And politicians didn't think that, okay, let us waive the loans for now, but also come up with a problem so that we return the self-respect of farmers, and that this problem doesn't exist in the first place.
And I think probably a regular farmer, or maybe even not very well educated, the spaces that are not very well educated, they'll be more than happy with, oh, thank God this is happening right now, without really thinking about that we are completely entitled to be for this, for wherever we are living, for that place to be grown, for that place to be invested in. Talking about this, and you also just spoke about funding. So, in terms of funding, Fadnavis has secured substantial support both from the central government and the international bodies, like you also mentioned. So, how crucial do you think is this development? Is this level of investment, and do you think this will ensure the project's timely completion and also the sustainability?
I think so. I think every project now, as we live in a globalized world, is about, that kind of capital that moves around freely in the world. You need access to that kind of capital.
True.
You also need access to that kind of open technology.
Yeah.
We've lost a lot of the science that made, water conservation possible in the states of Rajasthan. So that is still a work in progress. So we do
Yeah.
need real time solutions, the science of which is available to us readily, which unfortunately in at the current stage happens to be available internationally and not domestically. So we
Right.
need to have strategic partnerships happen on on an international scale, I think. And I think the former chief minister, he's actually made these trips. He does take international trips on a regular basis where
Mm.
he's secured funding. I remember reading about this trip he took to Japan, where he substantially ensured it. It perhaps is not connected to this particular project, but
Okay.
substantial exchange of technology, information, inventions, and
Yeah.
ensuring that there is that flow of capital. So I think we need leaders who are capable of that. Very often, I think there's always a saying that politics is the last resort of scoundrels. But if enough good people don't do it, then scoundrels rule the mart. So I think that is something Indians have also experienced, that we've
Yes.
had the worst of the lot actually come to power. And what it does is that they sure know how to wiggle their way out to power using a number of techniques and by hoodwinking the people. But once
Yeah.
they do get to power, there's not much they can do, because they do not have the kind of exposure or the kind of know-how to actually bring all of these things back, and they're actively only invested in getting elected again by coming up with another hoodwinking scheme. So I think this
Absolutely.
shows also how future leadership of this country should be like. And I think Prime Minister Modi set up an excellent examples, and state leaders following suit is exceptionally great. That they are also tapping into this international capital market, and they're also looking into exchange of information, exchange of technology. That is exceptionally, I think, important, because
Absolutely. Like they say, the mark of a true king is also the kind of advisors he keeps.
yes.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you should always be open to these kinds of collaborations. And, you always learn something from others. And I think that openness to dialogue, that capacity to actually convert dialogue and that curiosity about Bharat into active investments, I think that is also something key. Because if you look at a lot of these countries, even
mm,
even Canada, which is at sort of the Trudeau government, which is at war with India, if you look at the people or the opposition of
yeah,
Canada,
yeah,
they're actually invested in the Indian markets because it's the most profitable in the current day and age. So
true.
we do have something to offer to the world in terms of a better return on investment. You different countries have different apparatuses. Even France has a pension fund,
Yeah,
and that they roll out. The government has a pension fund, and this pension
mm,
fund is invested in different projects with great returns across the world.
yeah,
India happens to be on the growth run right now, and the sort of GDP growth, the kind of stability that we've shown post COVID and post the sort of wars that have broken out in different parts of the world has been exceptional. So we do
absolutely.
offer
And
that
I
return
think
on
how we've
investment.
held our own is absolutely amazing to watch.
Absolutely. And we do offer an amazing return on investment. I think it's up to the state leadership to really leverage upon that, to have the awareness that these things exist across the world and that we need to bring it to our state. We need to benefit regions like Marathwada with it, and have that sense of local to global and global to local on a much more mature level,
Right.
not just restricted to small displays of local to global. That is export of time,
Absolutely.
culture and everything. That's just the beginning.
True
This is
that.
where
And I think when the sense of ownership is not just your house or not just your party, but it extends to your state and your country, and how you're representing it internationally, and what you're doing to make it grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that then becomes fundamentally important. I think it remains to be seen how the people of Marathwada will pick, because I think it's a very swing region
Mm.
that's voted differently many of the times.
Yeah.
But I think it will be a testament, and I think it's a call to action for them also to sort of lead the way for the entire country and set an example as to how you should vote. You should vote for people with long-term solutions to your problems, people who will ensure that the problem is fixed and not just temporarily,
Addressed.
bandaged. So I
Yeah.
think that is the call of the hour, and we will see. I think it's important to notice this because Indian voters sometimes surprise.
Mm.
Sometimes they take the most mature decisions, most unexpected decisions. So I
Right.
think truly Bharat is truly a vibrant democracy because you judge the voters a certain way and then they come out completely astounding the country, world, and all analysts in the way that they pick. So I think
Absolutely. It's
there is a
pretty
lot of
amazing to
political,
watch.
yeah, I think there is a lot of political maturity in the
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And information dissemination helps in taking that maturity in the right direction, because very often there is no discussion and debate as well on these schemes and these finer things that go into action. And these discussions, I think, end of the day also help to direct that maturity in a more constructive way than not.
Absolutely. Now, Rashmi, I would but let's talk about some challenges. Now, given the water grids aim to connect Marathwada to water-rich regions, what are the political and logistical challenges that Fadnavis's, the government might be facing in implementing this ambitious project? Also, could it lead to broader regional development?
I think political continuity is one major problem that this project faces, because
Yeah.
when there is no political continuity of a particular party, very often we see other political parties coming and completely trampling those projects.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes an ego match. They don't
Hmm.
want the people, if the people remember one project sufficiently and associate it sufficiently with one particular leader, then it becomes the mission, life and mission of other political parties, if there is no political continuity, to actually stall these projects or completely derail these projects,
Hmm. Hmm.
or completely delay them in a way that they never materialize. So I think political continuity is one of the largest challenges that it faces, because it's a long term project
Yeah.
started in 2019, but I think phase one is supposed to complete, and then there are multiple phases that need to go in for the problem to actually cease to exist. And I think that is one major challenge: political continuity, and other political parties sort of getting in the way of this progress and taking it upon their ego. The second sort of challenge I see to the completion of this project really is the sort of narrative building that goes around water, right? So many of the fights, between different states, Karnataka,
Hmm.
Tamil Nadu for that matter, and
Yeah.
all the states have been based on water.
Yeah.
And very often these fights are politically manufactured and then planted in these regions, in these communities, and then they take a life of their own. So
True.
I think that is also, that political mischief, not political mischief, but I think mischief is a very positive word to associate with something that is so destructive.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
deliberate hampering of projects by using tactics like these, wherein you try to sabotage
Yeah.
uh, active projects by spreading false narratives around them. I think that is also one major problem which this project might see in the long run, if political continuity is what do you say, is ensured. So it's like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
If you do come to power, then there is the whole narrative war that you have to face, which might start political instability in the region
Hmm.
by these manufactured narratives in the minds of the people who live around and who will be affected with this water sharing. The regions which will contribute to this project.
Right.
And then, if there's no political continuity, then you do face a possible demise of the entire project and the collapse, because of the ego matches that different political parties do take on. So I think there's this active constant problem that politicians need to
Yeah.
maneuver politically for, to make sure that a project really materializes and goes forward without much issues. But I think it's always an uphill task.
Absolutely. To finish, Rashmi, do talk a little about, how could this lead to broader regional development?
Well, I definitely do feel that when there is water, when there's security, water security, and
Yeah.
the basic necessity is just fulfilled,
Mm.
not many people, lesser people are going to want to leave the region.
Yeah.
The life expectancy is going to increase. The farmers, their income is going to grow. And then
Mm.
they can also, I just feel like farming as general will grow, because the more the money the farmer makes, the more can he invest into, futuristic ways of farming, or really developing the region, or
Yeah.
educating his children the way that they want to. And
Yeah.
I think when there's water, when there's when there are roads, and when there's overall prosperity, then businesses do flock these regions, because we
True.
are a constantly expanding region, and this region, it borders different states, so there's a lot of cooperation that comes in from other cities as well. There's proximity to other large cities of neighboring
Yeah.
states. So I think there's going to be a lot of flocking from those regions as well, because all states are actively, all cities are actively looking, all companies are actively looking for newer horizons to touch. So I think there will be an overall, development. And
Development.
water, I think, it's the pulse of every society. There's no water, people run away. There was an active water problem in Bangalore,
Yeah.
and there were many companies which took the active decision to leave the city and to set up, headquarters elsewhere.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think water is one problem which, which it's one issue which can solve many problems and create many more. So I think solving that will just, increase the standard of living and bring investment in an unprecedented way to the region, and actually propel it into the future that's been sort of taken away from it by successive political parties and governments.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having joined us today. So that was Rashmi Samant, a political analyst and author, speaking to us. Thank you so much, Rashmi.
Thank you so much. Wonderful being on your show.